Ask the Coach 15 with Nick Sellers. How you doing, Nick?
Very well, thank you, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. Good. So, Nick, I've been reading a lot lately about how consistency trumps everything else when it comes to achieving goals. It seems a simple idea, but I think probably something that's hard to put into practice, and it's often overlooked in favour of grand gestures and quick fixes. So, Nick, why do you think consistency is so often underestimated when it comes to achieving goals?
Yeah, I think it's actually consistency in progress that we're talking about here, isn't it? I often liken it to walking up a hill. You have to put one step in front of the other. It takes more effort to put one step in front of the other when you're walking uphill. Sometimes the top of the hill doesn't seem to be getting any closer, but it can be good for us to stop and turn around and see how far we've come. How far have we made it up the hill? So, a couple of things in that effort is required if we're going to make progress. Consistency is all about staying the course, really. And it can seem a bit uninspiring to people because, often we like to dash about busy, busy, busy. But the reality is that actually taking, one step after another in a very measured and purposeful way takes us to where we want to be. Whereas haphazard steps in any direction actually stop us in our progress.
So we know that consistency is important, but as I know, it can be incredibly difficult to maintain. So, what are some of the common barriers, Nick, that people face when trying to be consistent, and how can we overcome them?
Um, I think it comes down to this that um, the barriers are often things that we didn't consider, so it might be that there's a barrier that exists, we just didn't look for it. And so we get kind of stopped or stalled in our progress, and that can be disappointing. So we have to give some thought to what might lie ahead of us that will prevent us from getting to where we want to be, those steady steps. Life does serve up the unexpected as well. Sometimes there's a distraction, something that comes at us from left field, so to speak. And those things, they're going to happen. They are going to happen. Could we have predicted a certain turn of events? Could we have predicted a distraction? Maybe not. But it might be that it stops us momentarily, but it doesn't need to stop us permanently. So I would say that where obstacles pop up, where there's something that stops us in our progress, we have to actually reflect on that and figure out how we're going to move beyond it. But we have to have our eye on the end of the journey, that reaching the top of the hill thing, the big goal. And big goals are reached with consistent small steps.
I think we've discussed this in the past, Nick, that motivation often comes from success, and staying motivated is not something that's intrinsic, it's something that fluctuates given success. So how do we stay committed to our goals, and how do we stay consistent when we're feeling less motivated, or we're facing setbacks?
That's a really good point. I think we become kind of attuned to celebrating big things, the kind of end of 2024 fireworks display kind of whoop whoop, or your favorite team has won the cup. And we've got to take account of how was it we got to that point? How did that team get to there? How did we reach the top of the hill? And actually, every step that we take, every game that team played was a success. It was the successful accomplishment of part of their plan to get to the cup final, and then winning the cup was the final step in that. So I think we have to celebrate and acknowledge all the effort that goes in taking each step, and celebrate, some of those little milestones that we achieve, and look at them and just see them as proof that we can do this.
Yeah, we always go back to the sport analogy, Nick, but I agree. You watch the Olympics, and it's once every 4 years, and you see
Yeah,
someone celebrating with their winning the gold medal, which is fantastic. But you don't see the previous 4 years of getting up in the dark in the middle of winter and doing 5, 6 hours training all the time.
yeah,
That they eat a very restricted diet. You just see the success at the end of it, and it's easy to forget
yeah,
all the small incremental steps that have taken across 4 years, and probably a lot longer to get to where they are now.
yeah.
What are some of the practical strategies, or techniques that people can use to build consistency into their daily lives?
I actually think establishing good routines. We are creatures of habit. There's no doubt about that. As probably, science can prove that to us. So having good solid routines that we can follow every day is really, really important for us. And I called them good solid routines for a reason. It's because we have potentially many bad routines in our lives. So when we've had a hard day, a busy day, we might feel like just kicking our shoes off, slumping in the couch, watching the telly. Maybe the better thing for us would actually be not to take our shoes off, but to go out for a walk, get some fresh air. It might only be that it's a 15-minute walk, but it might clear our head of the busyness of the day. It might stimulate a conversation we're going to have with loved ones in the evening. It might just reinvigorate us. So establish good, healthy routines, ones that are actually going to contribute towards the progress you want to make. That might be eating habits, health, exercise habits, clearing your head habits. It could be anything, but those are the ways I think that we make progress. It's not by just giving way to what feels comfy.
Absolutely. Yeah, another area, like just following on from that, we've discussed before is setting realistic goals and something that's sustainable. And I know we joked about this earlier, is it, what do you say, by Valentine's Day, most New Year's resolutions are on the scrap pile, but that's
Yeah.
probably because people set unrealistic goals and expectations. How would you go about, or how would you recommend it going about setting goals that are sustainable, that can support long-term consistency?
I think we have to have a plan. I think it's okay to set, a big goal. And very often, New Year's resolutions, they're set in the heat of the moment, and the heat of the moment might be fueled with alcohol and celebration at the end of the year. So we've kind of reached the end of this year, and we're about to embark on the new year, and that just feels like the logical time to make a big change in life. But then we don't have a plan behind how we're going to achieve that. So we plunge into the gym. We do 5 sessions a week for the first 2 weeks. We wear ourselves out, or we injure ourselves, or do something along those lines. It might be that we've got, a relationship with a friend or in the family that actually we've not paid much attention to, and we decide I'm going to sort that out. But then what we do is we end up kind of like going to the gym. We end up making the big gesture, the grand gesture, and it doesn't necessarily take us one small step towards our ultimate goal. It actually might flag a warning to somebody else to say, "Is this real? Do they mean it?" And so it doesn't actually accomplish what we hoped it would accomplish. So I think the lack of a plan is probably the root cause of why people don't achieve big goals. And the plan could be one that, we just plan one step at a time, 1 month at a time. But ultimately, if our goal is to do something sizable by the end of the year, as a New Year's resolution would indicate, then how are we going to get there? It's by starting going to the gym. It's by making more effort in a relationship. It's by paying more attention when we're in meetings at work. If we're not very good at listening when we're in the workplace, we can't suddenly become the best listener in the world. That's just not going to work. We've got to exercise that muscle and build it up.
On your point of writing down goals, Nick, I've read a few stats around that, and I know that goals are exponentially more likely to be achieved just by writing that goal down. And so if you're here at the start and you've got this big goal at the end, how's the best process to stay on track? Should you be writing your goal down daily, or should you be writing your reflections down daily? How do you keep on track between your start point and your goal?
Yeah, good question. So let's say, one of the common ones is weight loss. I might say I want to lose 10 kilos this year. And it's January. Let's say it's January. We made a New Year's resolution. I want to lose 10 kilos this year. That in itself is a statement. That in itself is a goal, but it doesn't actually say how we're going to do it. So there's two ways that we could look at doing that. One is by exercising more. One is by eating differently. And so we can go down two parallel routes. But to get to that 10-kilo weight loss, we might say, something, in my first month, I'm just going to set myself the goal of losing 1 kilo. And so we embark on that. we might set ourselves the goal of actually understanding nutrition more and actually learning about food and the value of food. Um, Exercise, if we've not been in the gym for years, just hitting the gym is actually, likely to lead to either injury or demotivation, as you mentioned earlier. So why don't we have a little plan for what we're going to do in January? When we get to the end of January, did we lose the kilo? Did we learn something about nutrition? Did we have something that we set ourselves as a mini goal in the gym? And could we look back on the month of January and say, you know something? I did it. And then we set ourselves the goal for the following month. What will the goal be? Maybe the part of the goal is that we start changing our eating habits, not just learn about nutrition, but we start to change the eating habits and so forth. So we can actually kind of almost like build momentum, start off small, but build momentum through the year. And who knows, by the time we get to the end of the year, we've lost the 10 kilos. We're much fitter than we are. We've got more energy. Not only are we lighter, but we're actually eating more healthily. And that's giving us some of that energy as well as the exercise. And who knows whether we actually in our next year decide that we're actually going to go do a degree in nutrition. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, like what you mentioned earlier. For me, routine is the first part of working towards a goal. So when it comes to exercise, there's been times when I've been a lot fitter than I have just now, but I'm trying to get fit again. And really, what I'm doing just now is just making the goal to exercise daily, not with any outcome, but just to get into that routine and mindset of exercising daily. Then once that routine's embedded into my day, I'll then start to say, well, why am I exercising? What am I looking to get from the exercise? And measuring it a bit more towards the end goal of where I'm looking for the exercise to get me to. I do think the routine is so important in getting towards consistency and
Yeah.
getting towards the end goal.
That is such a good approach, Andrew. Getting the routines established. It doesn't mean to say that we're actually aiming for the gold medal right now, but getting the routines in place that means that we get used to something and it's not a chore.
Mm.
I think when we don't have things aligned with our values, they can become chores. But knowing that you've got a goal to get fitter, and obviously I think you'd want to avoid injury. Let's say
Mhm.
so you're getting the routine established. We all live by routines, all of us. Every single person lives by a routine. Many of them are bad routines, ones that will see us at the coffee machine in the office more frequent than we ought to be, ones that will see us in the shops more frequently than we need to be. It's because it's a comfortable place for us. We can start to change some of those routines. Instead of going to the coffee machine for the eighth time, maybe what we do is we go take a walk around the building, take a walk around the outside of the building and get fresh air. So it's about making those little changes, establishing routines, because it's those small steps that are not going to stress us, but they are going to empower us, and we're actually going to start feeling the benefits of sticking with those new routines.
Those in mindset, I completely agree, Nick, on routine. I think it's so important. And it's just about getting yourself into that mindset to build consistency. How would you suggest cultivating a mindset that supports long-term goals? Should it be, there's so much information out there just now. You can jump on YouTube, you can read books. We're kind of flooded with this kind of mindset mentality. Some
Yeah.
of it I don't think is helpful, but how would you recommend someone gets in the right mindset for them to
I
start?
think I think be careful about what you read online. There is a lot of good stuff out there, but there's a whole lot of stuff as well which is really just put out there by companies, by people who are actually, just trying to grab your attention and to, sign you up for a subscription, a plan that you're gonna pay money for. It may be that that's a turning point for you and it's really positive. It could be that it actually just leads you off down a path that's not sustainable. What we're talking about today is about sustaining progress, really. And yeah, our mindset is really important. We can have quite a negative mindset. We can say things to ourselves like, I can't do that, I'm not good enough. All manner of things come to mind that we hear people say. I don't know how to do it. Well, you might not know how to do it, but it doesn't mean to say you can't learn how to do it. And sometimes we're anchored in the past as well. We can't change a single second of what happened before this moment. But what we can do is we can actually change what we do with the seconds that lie ahead. And so that's a positive step in itself, actually recognizing that we are in control of how we spend our time. We're not victims of circumstances to the extent we sometimes persuade ourselves. And so let's start to chunk up our time in a more positive way. 10 minutes walk every day is a step forward. Might be a small one, but it's a step forward. A visit to the gym twice a week is not a big thing, but it's a step forward. So we can accumulate lots of small steps forward and be intent on maintaining them, making them consistent. And we'll get to the point where we think, that's quite easy enough for me now. And then when we realize that, then we actually, up the ante a bit. We make the walk a 15-minute walk. We add weights on in the gym. We do things that actually stretch us further and further, but we're always heading towards the goal.
You've seen the graph a few times, Nick, where it says what people think success is, and it's a diagonal line shooting up into the air. What success actually looks like, and it's a zigzagging line going up and down, up and down. Ultimately, we want to keep that trend going upwards. So if we find ourselves on the downward trend, how do we pick ourselves up and get ourselves back into a positive mindset and working towards our goals?
Reflect on it. What caused it? Was this downward trend because we lost our focus? Was this downward trend because we felt ill for a while? It might be that we've been off colour for a week. Well, you can't beat yourself up about some things. So if we lost focus, then let's figure out, well, why did I lose focus? What distracted me? Was it just that I was overtired? Maybe I need to get to bed earlier. Maybe I need to actually make sure that, I do something that actually refreshes me during the day. Sometimes we sit in front of a screen all day, and before we know it, we feel wiped out, and it's still only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe we should have actually taken a proper lunch break or taken proper tea breaks during the day. We figure out we're all individual, we're all unique, and we actually have to decide what works for us. But reflect on it. Think about why things are not as good now. Was it, did I put a bit of weight on because I ate cream cakes through the week? If that's been the source of it, then maybe I shouldn't eat so many cream cakes. We can think about what we're doing, become mindful that what we do has an effect on the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So where we find that there's been a bit of a reversal, figure out what caused it.
Something you often say, Nick, it does resonate with me a lot, is do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I do wonder that maybe the reason that a lot of people struggle with consistency is they're trying to work towards the wrong goal or something that, as again you say, doesn't feed their soul. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a key point, Andrew. It's good for us to be passionate about something. It's good for us to feel as though we've got a purpose that we're working towards. And I think just it's a reality of life that we need to earn money to pay bills. Okay, it may be that we cannot do 7 days a week what we're passionate about as a result of that. But what we can do is, if we're really passionate about a thing, we can work 5 days a week to pay those bills and give us enough money to pursue the passion. I say that guardedly because sometimes a passion can be an obsession. And that kind of takes on an unhealthy angle then. So, fitness can become an obsession. I think it's good for us to be fit and healthy. It's good for us to be adequately fit and healthy. But if our aim is to run a marathon, let's get fit and healthy to run the marathon. We don't necessarily have to go on beyond that and do Ironman and ultra marathons. We can if we choose to, that's fine. But I would say, kind of stop before it becomes an obsession, because obsessions kind of occupy us as they're singular things, and it means that other things that are important in life get no attention.
Definitely. I do think societally we are a lot of the time from a young age told what our goals should be, and those goals are presented to us, and some of those goals potentially aren't necessarily what you should be striving for in life, and I think potentially it takes time for young people or anybody to realise maybe some of those goals aren't things you should be striving for. So I do think there's certainly something, from a young age that we're presented with that maybe we should be presented with, or we should be presented with it differently. Certainly. Yeah.
It's quite.
Nick, would you mind sharing any, and I'm putting you on the spot here, would you mind sharing any goals that you've got? Is there any goals that you've written down recently? Or I know you have talked about goals in the past, not explicitly, but what are you working towards personally? Is there anything you could share with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So business wise, my business is only a few years old, and I will say that I did get sucked into a little bit. I got sucked into the whole notion of building a business. For me, I realised that actually wasn't the passion that I had. My passion was around helping people, and so I'm much more interested now in working with people who are interested in being helped through coaching and mentoring than I am in building a business. And it changes the way that I think. So that's one of my goals just now. I will say that I'm also intending to lose a bit more weight. So I lost about 19 pounds. What would that be in kilos? About 8 kilos, 9 kilos during lockdown.
Quite a lot.
But then I started putting weight back on again. And so, having put a bit of weight back on, I'm now actually intent on losing a bit more. So I've lost about 6 kilos in the last 8 months, which is for me. I'm not in a hurry. Um, my goal is to lose about another 4. So that would take me to about 10 kilos lost. So those are some of the things. The other things are around family. I'm a very task oriented kind of person, and I love work. And I have been guilty in the past of going wherever the job required me to go. And I've had a great career. I've traveled the world, worked on some great projects with blue chip companies. Super. Don't regret the kind of work I've done. I look back though and I realise that there was a price to pay for pursuing work that way. And so now my goal is to have a nice balance between family, friends, and life outside of work and the kind of work I do. And honestly, you talked about, if you do what you're passionate about, you'll never work another day in your life. I'm heading in that direction. I'm pleased with the way things go for me.
Fantastic. No, it's a great place to be, Nick. So, loads of good advice, Nick. I think what I'm hearing is small changes, incremental changes, get into a routine, and you'll get towards the goal. So, just to rewind just slightly, Nick, if somebody's listening to this and they think they've got a goal in place, what's the first thing they should be doing today? What's your recommendation? What should they do right now if they think they've got a goal? What should they do to assess that goal and get on their way towards it?
Right. First thing I would say is write your goals down. That's the first thing. Write it down because that kind of embeds it mentally. Second thing I would say is consider what the small steps are that will lead up to that goal. And a small step, if you've got a goal that's going to take you a year to achieve, um, then don't think you can do it in 3 months. Be practical, be realistic, but then figure out the small steps. It's if you're going to lose the 10 kilos, for example, yeah, 1 kilo a month will take you towards your goal, but you've got to figure out the how that goes around that 1 kilo because the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. So if you're going to lose a kilo in a month, then figure out what you're going to change to achieve that and stick with it. Even if you stick with it for the first month, you can then figure out do I now have a basis for celebrating? And I would actually say another thing, we kind of touched on this earlier, write things down in a kind of a journal as well. You may be the only person that ever reads the journal. You don't have to share it with anybody, and it's not going to get published in 100 years' time. But just writing things down from day to day takes 10 or 15 minutes. It's a form of reflection. We can write down what happened, why it happened, how it makes us feel, and what we want to do next. And I think that's a really nice way of week by week kind of just reflecting and moving forwards in a small kind of way. Hopefully but you've got to have the big goal. You've got to have the big goal. That's your starting point. And then it's the steps that you're going to take day by day that are going to follow.
Yeah, I like the idea of journaling more. Like, I don't do it myself, but it's something I know is powerful. And keep meaning to start a journal, but it's never too late. So maybe that's one for go out
If
by
I could
yourself
just
a
say
journal
one
at the
more thing
weekend.
about journaling is, it doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, the chances are you're going to be the only person that ever reads it. So you can start writing stuff down, you can scribble it, you can cross it out because you just changed a form of words or anything. It doesn't matter what it looks like, it's just the action of writing it down.
So important. I agree. Brilliant advice as always, Nick. Thanks again for taking the time, and hopefully you'll join me again next week.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Andrew. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks again, Nick.
Cheers.
Cheers.